Hi guys, so now I will be sharing you a story entitled The Marriage of My Father. When father married mother, he was well past 50 and we children are already grown up. He respected the institution of matrimony, but the many wars and revolutions that had shaken the Philippines had confused his life. He selected his partner, but put off marriage until long after the children and some of his children were married and had children of their own. When the time came that a new local government offered to legalize many unions theretofore unsanctioned, our whole family attended the mass marriage ceremony. That year, we were living in town. My next older brother, Berto, who was then 15 years old, and I had gone to the town market that day to sell coconuts. My cousin Pedro came running to tell us that father was waiting for us at the Presidencia. We ran as fast as we could until we reached the schoolhouse. Then Berto stopped suddenly and a deep consternation appeared in his face. I've just thought of Maria, he said. Maria was the daughter of one of our neighbors. It's getting late, I said. Let's go back and get her, he said. If I'm right, I said. You want to marry her? She's old enough to have children, he said. She's only 13, I said. She'll be 14 next month, he said. It's your own funeral, I said. We ran back to Maria's house and stood outside her yard. Berto hung awkwardly on the fence and shouted at Maria's mother. You want me for a son-in-law, don't you? He yelled. My daughter will marry no lazy neighbor of mine, she called out the window. Maybe you want a jackass like your husband, he said. But Maria was already coming down the ladder for her house. She rushed to the gate and when we ran to meet her. Her mother hung on the window sill and screamed while the three of us raced off to the Presidencia. There, we found hundreds of freshly scrubbed peanuts and laborers from the villages with their wives. They were standing in line to sign the public registry as evidence of their intention to be married. The children were playing in the dust as each bridegroom came up to the clerk, who was seated at a table outside the door to the building. He rolled up the sleeves of his cotton shirt, grasped the belt lightly, and bent awkwardly over the table. My brother Paulon and his wife and children, my brother Osong and his family, my brother Nicasio and my two sisters and mother were all standing in the line behind my father. Whose little girl? Father asked Berto. Your future daughter-in-law. My brother said, she will do. Father said, she's the best girl in town, if that's what you mean, said Berto. You wish to be my daughter-in-law, girl? Father said, Maria. Yes, sir, she said. Can you give me some grand line? He asked. Yes, sir, she said. That is enough, father said. Get in line. 4 policemen came out to the building and made a big enclosure with a rope. They drove all of us who were standing there into the enclosure and kept us inside. One policeman on each corner of the rope square. Some of the peasants had brought little jugs of wine with them, which they now passed around. The heat was blinding, the dust rose like a heavy cloud before rain. Finally, the town clerk announced that those who wished to be married by the judge in the Presidencia instead of the priest in the church should enter the Presidencia. Father moved toward an opening that was made in the rope enclosure and mentioned for mother and the rest to follow him. My brother Paulon took the hands of his children and followed father. My brother also herded his family before him. We all pressed toward the opening. My brother Nicasio was the last to get out. Then we discovered that we were the only family that were willing to be married in the Presidencia. We followed the clerk into the building and up into the judge's room. You wish to be married by me? He said. Yes, sir. Father said. How many children do you have? 7, judge. Father said. 5 strong boys and 2 good girls. But there are 18 of you here. Some of my sons' wives and their children, father said. Put your children on my right and your sons' children on my left. Yes, judge, father said. Mother moved to the right of the judge. Polon, Osong, Nicasio, my two sisters, and I followed her. My brother's Polon's wife and brother Osong's wife moved to the left of the judge, and their 7 children stood into 2 lines behind them. Father, my brother Berto, and Maria stood in front of the judge. Who are you? The judge asked Berto. He is my son too, father said. The judge pointed to Maria. Who's this little girl? She is my future daughter-in-law, father said. You wish to marry her, boy? Yes, sir, my brother said. Don't you think it's a little too soon? It's all right with us, Judge, Berto said. Are you sure you won't get mixed up with your family? With so many marriages at the same time? The judge asked father. We will try our best not to get mixed up, father said. The judge looked doubtfully at the lines to right and left of him by brothers and their children. Suddenly, he focused his eyes on me. Is this your son too? He said, Father. Yes, sir, father said. It will mix up. It will not do. You must have mixed up the families. I don't understand, Judge. Father said, he is too small. I looked at my brothers and sisters. I looked at my brother's children. I realized with a sense of inferiority that I was the smallest among them. I was older than my oldest nephew, but I was a dwarf beside him. Why is he so small for his age? Asked the judge. He drinks wine, father said. When did you start drinking, son? When I was 5, I said. Do you like drinking, boy? I sure do, I said. Do you have any wine in the jug you're holding? I nodded. Come here, son, he said. Sit beside me and bring your jug with you. My sisters giggled. My little nephew made faces at me as I sat beside the judge holding the jug on my lap. They pointed my long hair and laughed. They stamped on the floor and pointed at my big feet. Let me see now, the judge said. Let your married sons stand with their wives. Let their children stand in line behind their parents. Let your unmarried children except this boy. He patted my head. Stand in line behind you. My married brothers crossed over their wives and children. The judge read something from a book in Spanish and wrote down our names. Then he rose from his high chair and shook his hands. First with father, then with every one of us. This is all I have to give you, Judge, father said, offering a basket of eggs. Thank you, sir. I'll send you a goat tomorrow, father said. Thank you again, sir. You did a great honor, too. The judge said, You are the only ones in town who wish to be married by me. Well, father said, I was informed that we could be married by you without paying. You didn't have to pay in the church either, the judge said. Father's mouth dropped open. He grabbed Mother's hand and told us to follow him. We all rushed out of the building and found that the peasants and laborers had already gone to the church. Before we followed them, we stopped at the edge of the plaza and looked back at the Presidencia. The judge was at a window, waving his hands. Where are you going? He shouted. Get married again, father said. You can't do that, yelled the judge, but we ran across the plaza and past the schoolhouse. Father stumbled over a rock and fell into a rice paddy. Mother found a long pole and hauled it out to him. We pulled him out and he sat down on the grass and took off his wet shirt. Then we all ran on toward the church. Mother ran faster than any of us. She had tucked her skirt between her legs. People looked out of their windows and shouted joyfully at us. The bus drivers honked their horns. The church was guarded by 2 policemen, but they laughed and opened the door. Father stepped inside, gasping for breath. Then he wrung out his shirt and put it on. We stood in line behind him and walked to the altar, before which stood crowds of men, women, and children. Nearly 200 of couples were getting married. The priest was standing on a little platform. It was almost the end of the ceremony. We stood in silence and waited until he finished reading the marriage service. Then, candles were lighted under the holy images. The priest disappeared behind the black curtain, and the guards opened the door. We walked out into the sunny plaza. We went to the schoolyard, where dozens of tables were laden with food provided by the local government. There was plenty to eat for everyone. Father kept glancing at my little nephews and nieces. He was beaming with joy and contentment. Open the jug now, son, he said to me. The judge took it. I said, thank you guys for listening.